Have you ever wondered why, after talking with your mother, you feel exhausted, guilty, or like you were never good enough? When your mother says, "I love you," but her eyes express something completely different. When your successes become her accomplishments and your failures become your shame. If these words give you chills of recognition, you probably grew up with a narcissistic mother. And although it sounds brutal, I have to tell you a truth that probably no one has ever told you. Your mother could have been your first and worst emotional abuser. Freud knew that the first relationships with mothers shape our entire lives. But what happens when this woman, who should be your safe harbor, becomes your greatest source of anxiety and insecurity? Over the next few minutes, I'll show you 7 toxic behaviors that narcissistic mothers use to control their children for life. Behaviors so insidious that their victims often don't even realize they're being manipulated. Behaviors that can destroy your sense of self-worth for decades. But I warn you, what you'll hear may be painful. It may make you question your entire childhood, but only the truth can set you free. The first and most insidious tool of the narcissistic mother is something psychologists call competitive love. Sounds innocent, right? But it's one of the cruelest forms of emotional manipulation. A narcissistic mother doesn't love like a normal mother. She loves conditionally. Her love isn't a gift, it's a tool of control. I love you when you're perfect. I love you when you make me look good. I love you when you do exactly what I want. But the worst part of all this is that this woman sees love as a zero-sum game. If you love someone else, a partner, a friend, your own children, it means you love her less, and she can't stand that. Have you ever heard from your mother, "No one will ever love you like I do"? Or, "I'm the only person who really cares about you"? That's not love, that's programming. She's programming you to always put her first, to never leave, to always feel guilty for loving someone else. I remember the story of one woman who told me that her mother always told her as a child, "I'm the only woman who can truly love you." When this woman got married at age 30, her mother made her life hell on earth. She couldn't stand that her property now loved someone else. This is exactly the narcissistic mother's strategy, to make you feel guilty for every relationship you build outside of her, to make you always come back to her for comfort, even when she was the source of your pain. What city are you watching us from? Write in the comments. I want to know how far this epidemic of toxic mothers reaches. But this is just the beginning. What I'm about to tell you about the second tactic may completely change your perception of childhood. The second weapon in the narcissistic mother's arsenal is something Freud called projection. But in her execution, it's true manipulation, artistry. The narcissistic mother is a master at role reversal. She makes you become the parent, and she becomes the child. Do you remember situations when you were a child, but you had to comfort your mother? When you had to take care of her emotions, while yours were dismissed? When your problems were always less important than her dramas? "Why are you picking on me?" She would scream when you tried to tell her that something was hurting you. "I've already suffered so much, and you're adding more problems." And suddenly you felt guilty. You were the bad one. You had to apologize for even daring to have your own needs. This wasn't an accident. This was a conscious strategy. The narcissistic mother knows exactly how to make you feel responsible for her emotions. She knows how to use her suffering as a weapon against you. One of my friends told me how her mother always said, "You're giving me a heart attack." How many times did she hear this? Hundreds, and each time she felt like she was holding a knife pointed at her mother's heart. This girl at age 40 still can't make decisions without feeling guilty that she might hurt someone, but that's not all. The narcissistic mother has yet another, more sophisticated tactic. The third tool of the narcissistic mother is what I call performative love. Love for show, love for the audience, love that serves to glorify herself. Did your mother ever do something beautiful for you, then tell everyone around about it? Were her acts of love always spectacular, loud, requiring witnesses and admiration? I write emails to my children every day, one famous narcissist once said in a TV interview, so they can look back later and say, "Oh my God, Mum loved us so much." Do you hear that? It wasn't about making the children feel loved. It was about them knowing they were loved. And for the whole world to know about it, a narcissistic mother can't love privately. Her love must be documented, published, shown. Not because the children need it, but because she needs applause for being the best mother in the world. Do you remember all those situations when she did something special for you, but the whole time talked about how wonderful she was? When she helped you with homework, but then spent the whole week telling everyone how dedicated she was? When she bought you something nice, but then the whole family gathering talked about how much she sacrifices for you? That wasn't love. That was building her own image at your expense. And the worst part, when you were growing up, you probably felt guilty for not being grateful for this enormous love. You didn't understand why you felt empty despite all these proofs of love. But the fourth tactic of the narcissistic mother is even more destructive. The fourth and perhaps most cruel strategy of the narcissistic mother is competing with her own children. Yes, you heard right. A narcissistic mother sees her children, especially daughters, as competition. When you were growing up and becoming prettier, younger, full of potential, did your mother start making strange comments? Don't you think that dress is too short for you? At your age, I look much better. Men your age prefer mature women. That wasn't concern. That was sabotage. A narcissistic mother can't stand the thought that her child might be happier, more beautiful, more beloved than she is. She can't stand the thought that someone, even her own child, might take her position at the center of attention. One woman told me how her mother always accidentally organized family dramas on her birthday. Always. For 20 years, she accidentally had a heart attack on her daughter's wedding day. She accidentally fell down the stairs on her graduation day. Always something that made the attention return to her. These weren't accidents. This was systematic demolition of every moment of her child's happiness, and when her child finds a partner, oh, then real hell begins. The narcissistic mother will do everything to destroy that relationship. She'll tell the partner about all your problems from childhood. She'll plot intrigue. She'll play the victim. My child has changed so much since meeting you. But the fifth strategy is even more sophisticated. The fifth weapon of the narcissistic mother is gaslighting, so sophisticated that for years you may not even realize you're its victim. This isn't ordinary lying. This is systematic destruction of your sense of reality by a method so perfidious that Freud would probably consider it one of the cruelest defense mechanisms. That never happened. I never said that. You're making things up. You're too sensitive. You're exaggerating as always. You have memory problems. It's because of those movies, books, friends of yours. They're all turning you against me. Do these sentences sound familiar? A narcissistic mother has an amazing ability to rewrite history in real time. An event you remember clearly, her screaming, her cruel words, her behavior, suddenly never happened, and you start doubting your own memory. But the narcissistic mother's gaslighting has several levels of sophistication. The first level is direct denial of facts. I never hit you, she says, even though you remember the pain and the red handprint on your cheek. I never yelled, she claims, even though the neighbors heard her screams through the wall. The second level is minimizing and relativizing. It was just a tap, not a hit. I only raised my voice because you weren't listening. Other children have it much worse. At least you had a roof over your head. This way she makes your experiences become unimportant, and you feel illogical for even mentioning them. The third level is role reversal and projection. You hurt me. You were the aggressive one. Because of you, I lost my youth. You were always a problem child. Suddenly you become the abuser, and she becomes the innocent victim of your difficulty. The fourth most sophisticated level is gaslighting by proxy. The narcissistic mother involves other family members, friends, and even strangers to confirm her version of events. Ask Grandma, she'll tell you I never hurt you. The neighbor saw how naughty you were. The teacher also said you have memory problems. I remember the story of one man who for 30 years remembered how his mother locked him in a closet all night when he was 6 years old. He remembered the cold, the darkness, how he cried and begged her to let him out. He remembered finally falling, asleep on the closet floor and waking up stiff and frozen in the morning. When at age 36, during therapy, he finally talked to her about it, she said, "I would never do such a thing. I love children. You have memory problems. You should see a psychiatrist. It's because of stress at work. You're hallucinating." And you know what? For a moment, he believed her. For a moment, he thought maybe he really did have memory problems. That's exactly the power of gaslighting. It makes you doubt your own experiences, your own senses, your own right to truth. A narcissistic mother is an expert at exploiting your natural desire to believe her. She exploits the fact that as a child, you want to believe your mother is good. She uses your love for her against you. She knows you'd rather question your own memory than accept the fact that the woman who gave birth to you could be so cruel. Gaslighting by a narcissistic mother is particularly destructive because it starts very early, often when you're 3-4 years old, when your brain is just developing and learning to distinguish reality from fantasy. When the person who's supposed to teach you what truth is systematically destroys your trust in your own perceptions, your cognitive development becomes fundamentally disturbed. That's why adults with narcissistic mothers often have problems with trusting their own intuition, making decisions, recognizing their own emotions, distinguishing truth from lies in relationships, setting boundaries, defending against manipulation. And the sixth strategy touches something even more fundamental: your right to exist. The sixth and one of the most destructive strategies of the narcissistic mother is conditional existence. This means that your right to be loved, respected, and sometimes even to exist depends on whether you meet her expectations every moment, every day, for your entire life. I'll love you if you get good grades. I'll be proud of you if you're obedient. You're a good child only when you make me look good. You deserve love only when you're perfect. But a narcissistic mother rarely says this directly. She's much more sophisticated. She operates with subtle signals that are even more destructive because they're harder to identify and resist. When you do what she wants, her face lights up. She speaks to you in a sweet voice. She touches you tenderly. She tells others about your successes. She calls you her treasure, her pride and joy. In these moments, you feel like you're on top of the world. You feel loved, valuable, safe. But when you don't respond to her, when you do something she doesn't like, when you don't meet her expectations, she becomes cold and distant. She ignores you. She responds to you in monosyllables. She looks at you with an expression of disappointment and disgust. She sighs deeply, as if you were the biggest burden in her life. She tells others, "I don't know what's wrong with this child. Sometimes I don't recognize him." These aren't random mood swings. This is systematic conditioning. The narcissistic mother trains you like Pavlov's dog, rewarding with love for obedience and punishing with rejection for disobedience. One woman told me, "I never knew which mum would come home, whether the one who would be delighted with me or the one who would pretend I didn't exist. It depended on whether something happened at school that made her look good as a mother. Whether I got a good grade, whether the teacher praised me, whether other mothers saw how well behaved I was. I lived in constant stress, trying to predict what would make her love me that day." This is exactly the essence of narcissistic parenting. Your existence is conditionally accepted depending on whether you serve her narcissistic needs at any given moment. But it goes even deeper. A narcissistic mother doesn't just love conditionally, she conditionally allows you to exist. When you don't meet her expectations, she doesn't just not love you. She makes you feel like you have no right to take up space on this earth. Sometimes I wonder why I even gave birth to you. Life would be much easier without you. Other mothers are lucky. Their children bring them joy. You only cause me problems. Maybe you should live with dad, grandma, anyone else. These words aren't moments of anger. This is systematic undermining of your right to exist. A narcissistic mother makes you feel like a mistake, an accident, a burden that no one wanted. Children of narcissistic mothers grow up believing they must earn love, attention, the right to exist. That they're not worthy of love simply for being. That they must be perfect to be accepted. That their worth depends on their achievements, not their humanity. This leads to the development of what psychologists call a false self, a mask of perfection you wear to earn love. You stop being yourself and become who she wants you to be, but the problem is that her expectations constantly change. What makes her love you today might make her reject you tomorrow. One man told me, "For years I thought I was naturally a perfectionist. Only in therapy did I understand that perfectionism was my survival strategy. I thought if I was good enough, smart enough, successful enough, finally my mother would love me unconditionally. But it was like chasing a rainbow. The closer I got, the further it moved away." And this leads us to the seventh most disgusting strategy that combines all the previous ones into one monstrously effective tool of control. The seventh and most cruel weapon of the narcissistic mother is what I call emotional kidnapping. This is the moment when she uses the deepest fears and wounds of her child, wounds she herself created, to ensure loyalty for life. This strategy is so perfidious that even Freud would probably be shocked by its sophistication. After everything I've done for you, if it weren't for me, no one would want you. I'm the only person who truly loves you. You can't manage without me. No one will love you like I do. Other people will use you, but I'll always protect you. These aren't random sentences spoken in anger. This is systematic programming that starts when you're a few years old and lasts throughout childhood. The narcissistic mother instills in you the belief that you're emotionally dependent on her, that you have no right to your own life, that abandoning her means your emotional death. But how does she do this? The first step is isolation. The narcissistic mother does everything to limit your contact with other people who could show you that normal relationships look different. She criticizes your friends. That girl is a bad influence on you. That boy is from a bad family. Those kids are just using you. She undermines your relationship with your father. Dad doesn't understand you like I do. Dad wouldn't take care of you if I weren't here. Men don't know how to care for children. She undermines your relationship with grandparents. They spoil you, but they don't know what's good for you. They're old and don't understand anything. The second step is creating artificial dependency. The narcissistic mother makes you feel helpless without her. She doesn't teach you basic life skills. Why struggle? I'll do it better. She doesn't let you make your own decisions. You're still too young, Mum knows better. She doesn't give you a chance to make mistakes and learn from them. You can't afford mistakes. It could ruin your future. As a result, you grow up believing that without her you're helpless, that you can't function in the world, that your decisions will always be wrong, that you need her consent and approval in every situation. The third step is creating artificial crises. Whenever you try to become independent, she gets sick. Whenever you build your own life, she needs help. Whenever you're happy without her, she's dying of loneliness. Whenever you try to set boundaries, she has a nervous breakdown. One man told me this story. Every time I tried to move out of the house, my mother had a heart attack. Every time, for 15 years. When I was 18 and got into college in another city, heart attack. When I was 25 and wanted to rent an apartment, Heart attack. When I was 30 and met a girl, heart attack. Every time ambulance, hospital, doctors saying it's stress, and she's lying in bed whispering, "It's because of you. You're trying to kill me with your selfishness." And every time I came back feeling like a murderer. This is exactly emotional kidnapping, using your empathy against you. The narcissistic mother knows you're a good person. She knows you worry. She knows you don't want to be cruel. She knows you love her despite everything, and she uses this against you. The fourth step is guilt tripping at a masterful level. I sacrificed my whole life for you. I gave up everything for you. Other men wanted me, but I stayed with your father for you. I could have had a career, but I chose motherhood. I laid all my dreams on the altar of your happiness. The truth is that a narcissistic mother never sacrificed anything for you. Everything she did for herself, to look good, to have control, to ensure a source of narcissistic supply. But she rewrites history in such a way that you feel guilty for her choices, for her life, for her unfulfilled dreams. The fifth step is creating the belief in your ingratitude. After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me. Other children love their mothers. I never thought I'd raise such a selfish person. I gave you everything, and you can't even call. She makes your independence become an act of cruelty. Your happiness becomes an act of betrayal. Your own life becomes an act of murder. Every attempt at normal adult life becomes proof that you're a bad person. The sixth step is sabotaging your relationships. A narcissistic mother can't stand the thought that someone else might be important to you. She does everything to destroy your friendships, romantic relationships, professional relationships. She plays the victim. Ever since you've been with that girl, you've completely changed. She spreads rumors. I heard that friend of yours has drug problems. She creates dramas. Right on your wedding day, I got test results. It might be cancer. One woman told me my mother destroyed every relationship I had. Every time I brought a boyfriend home, she would lecture him about what psychological problems I have, how difficult I am in relationships, how much I suffer after previous breakups. She told them this for their own good, so they would know what they're getting into. 3 relationships fell apart before I understood what was happening. But the worst part of all this is what happens to the personality of children of narcissistic mothers. To survive emotional kidnapping, they develop what psychologists call a trauma bond, pathological loyalty to the person who hurts them. The effects of growing up with a narcissistic mother are devastating and long-term, often manifesting in ways that make victims not understand for years where their problems come from. Freud knew that the first years of life shape our psyche forever. But what happens when those first years are a systematic attack on our sense of self-worth, when our first love relationship is a relationship with a psychological abuser? Children of narcissistic mothers grow up believing they are fundamentally inadequate, that they must constantly prove their worth, that their needs are not important, that love must be earned through hard work, perfection, and self-sacrifice, not received unconditionally for simply existing. Scientific research shows a terrifying truth. Adults who grew up with narcissistic parents have significantly higher risk of developing anxiety disorders. They live in constant stress, expecting criticism, rejection, attack. Their nervous system is constantly in alarm mode, as if always waiting for the next burst of mother's anger. Depression. They grow up believing they're not worth loving, that their life has no value, that the world is a dangerous place full of people who want to hurt them. Personality disorders, especially borderline personality disorder and avoidant personality disorder. They can't create a stable self-image. They oscillate between idealization and devaluation of other people. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Yes, PTSD, not only after war or disasters. Systematic psychological terror from a narcissistic mother is trauma that can last throughout childhood, problems building healthy relationships. They don't know what normal, healthy love looks like. They attract narcissistic partners or sabotage healthy relationships because they seem boring or fake. Addictions, alcohol, drugs, gambling, sex, work, food, anything that can drown out the pain and inner emptiness. Suicidal thoughts, when life becomes unbearable and therapy seems unattainable or ineffective. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. The real effects are much more subtle and pervasive. Paralyzing perfectionism. They live believing they must be perfect to deserve love. Every mistake is a catastrophe. Every criticism is proof they're worthless. They often don't take on any challenges because they're afraid of failure, inability to set boundaries. They never learn they have the right to say no, that their needs are important, that they don't have to please everyone around them at the cost of their own mental health. Compulsive need for control. Either they try to control everything around them to feel safe, or they completely give up control over their life because they were taught their choices don't matter. Identity problems. They don't know who they really are. For years, they played the role of the perfect child, and now they can't distinguish their true personality from the mask they wore for their mother. Difficulty trusting their own intuition. For years, their perception of reality was questioned by their mother. Now they don't trust their own feelings, their own decisions, their own assessments of situations. But the worst thing is that they often don't realize the problem lies in their childhood. They think they are the problem, that they are too sensitive, too demanding, too difficult in relationships, that other children somehow manage with difficult parents, so it must be their fault. One woman told me, "For 35 years I thought I was broken, that something was fundamentally wrong with me. I went from therapist to therapist, tried different medications, meditation, diets, everything. I thought I had some genetic predisposition to depression and anxiety. Only therapy with a childhood trauma specialist showed me that I wasn't the problem. It was the way I was raised. It was like discovering that my whole life I was trying to treat symptoms instead of the cause." Narcissistic mothers produce children who can't set boundaries because they never had the right to have boundaries, have trouble saying no, because no was equivalent to rejection and punishment, attract narcissistic partners. Because toxic dynamics seem normal and familiar to them, feel guilty about their successes, because they learned their joy, take something away from mother, can't ask for help. Because they learned their needs are a burden to others, have trouble trusting their own intuition, because for years their perception was questioned, overly empathetic because they had to constantly monitor mother's moods for their own safety, have difficulty expressing anger because anger was forbidden and dangerous, feel responsible for others' emotions because they were their mothers. Therapists from childhood. This is not their fault. This is the result of systematic programming by the person who should have protected them, loved them unconditionally, and taught them how to function in the world. But can you recover from this? Can you reverse the damage that a narcissistic mother inflicted through decades of manipulation? Healing after childhood with a narcissistic mother is not a process that lasts a few months or even a few years. It's a lifelong journey, often painful, full of doubts and relapses, but possible and worthwhile in every inch of its difficulty. The first stage is breaking through denial. This is the most difficult moment because you must accept a truth that can destroy your entire worldview. The woman who gave birth to you, the woman you love, the woman society told you to respect. This woman hurt you. Systematically, consciously, for years. Our society instills in us the myth of the sacred mother, the belief that all mothers love their children unconditionally. Media, literature, religion, everything around us repeats that motherhood is the most sacred relationship, that maternal love is the purest of all loves. And you're supposed to say that your mother wasn't sacred, that she was your abuser, This requires enormous courage. It means you must question not only your relationship with your mother, but your entire vision of the world. It means you must accept that for years you lived in an illusion, that you defended a person who was destroying you. One man told me, "The worst moment was when I finally said out loud, 'My mother was cruel.' It felt like blasphemy. I felt like I was breaking some fundamental law of the universe, but at the same time, for the first time in my life, I felt relief, like I could finally breathe." The second stage is identifying patterns. You must learn to recognize how your mother's strategies affected your behavior, your relationships, your way of thinking. It's like psychological archaeology, uncovering layers of programming that were placed in your mind through years of manipulation. You might discover that your perfectionism isn't a character trait, but a survival strategy, that your inability to say no isn't politeness, but the result of terrorization, that your trust issues aren't paranoia, but a logical reaction to years of gaslighting. The third stage is working through anger. When you start understanding what happened, you'll probably feel fury, anger at your mother for what she did to you, anger at yourself for allowing it for so long, anger at the world that didn't protect you, anger at other family members who saw what was happening but did nothing. This anger is normal and healthy. After years of suppressing your own emotions, after years of being a good child who never got angry, you finally allow yourself to feel what you should have felt throughout childhood. But you must learn to express this anger constructively, in therapy, through writing, through sports, through art, not by destroying your life. The fourth stage is setting boundaries. This may be the most practical, but also the most difficult stage. You must learn to say no to a woman who throughout your life punished you for every no. You must learn to protect your emotional territory from someone who for decades systematically violated it. This might mean limiting contact, visiting her less often, shorter phone conversations, not sharing private information. It might mean completely cutting off the relationship if she still tries to control and manipulate you. It might mean telling her directly, "I won't let you talk to me this way anymore," and walking away when she breaks that boundary. One woman told me, "The first time I told my mother no, I was 35 years old. She asked me to visit her for the holidays, but I wanted to spend them with my husband and children. When I said no, she had such a fit of rage that the neighbors called the police, but I stood my ground. And you know what? The world didn't collapse. She didn't die. And for the first time in my life, I felt like an adult." The fifth stage is rebuilding self-worth. This can be the work of a lifetime. You must learn that you're worthy of love simply for existing, not for what you do or achieve. That your needs are important. That you have a right to happiness, to mistakes, to being imperfect. You must learn to distinguish your own voice from your mother's voice in your head. When you hear, "You're hopeless," you must ask, "Is this really what I think? Or is this an echo of her words?" When you feel guilty about your happiness, you must remind yourself, "I have a right to be happy. My happiness doesn't take anything away from anyone else." The sixth stage is learning healthy relationships. After years of living in toxic dynamics, it can be difficult to recognize what normal, healthy relationships look like. You might attract narcissistic partners because their behavior seems familiar to you. You might sabotage healthy relationships because they seem boring or fake compared to the drama you're used to. You must learn that healthy love doesn't hurt most of the time. Healthy people don't punish you for expressing needs. Healthy people don't gaslight or manipulate you. Healthy people support your successes instead of sabotaging them. Healthy people apologize when they hurt you instead of blaming you for feeling hurt. This will be a journey that can take years. There will be days when you doubt your own experiences. There will be moments when you feel guilty for betraying your mother. There will be times when her voice in your head will scream that you're ungrateful, selfish, that without her you're worth nothing. But remember, every day without her toxic influence is a day you can heal. Every healthy relationship you build is proof that you're not doomed to repeat her patterns. Every moment of happiness without guilt is a small victory over her programming. And most importantly, this isn't a journey you have to take alone. The most important thing you must understand at the end of this difficult journey is that freeing yourself from a narcissistic mother is not only possible, it's your duty to yourself and to future generations. It won't be easy, but it's possible. And the first step is full, relentless acceptance of the truth about who your mother really was and what she really did. This may be the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life. Our society, our culture, our religious traditions, everything instills in us the myth of the sacred mother, the belief that all mothers love their children unconditionally. But the truth is that some women shouldn't be mothers, and some mothers never really loved their children. They only loved what those children gave them, a sense of control, a source of narcissistic supply, public proof of their wonderfulness. Freud spoke about the importance of working through trauma, but trauma from a narcissistic mother is particularly perfidious because it starts from the moment of birth and is camouflaged under the guise of love. This isn't trauma from one event. This is trauma from an entire relationship system. That was the foundation of your development, but this trauma can be worked through. The first step is naming what happened with the right words. This wasn't love. This was manipulation. This wasn't care. This was control. This wasn't protection. This was exploitation. This wasn't a difficult character. This was psychological. Violence. These weren't moments of weakness. This was systematic emotional terror. When you name it with the right words, you can start reclaiming your right to truth. For years, she controlled the narrative about your relationship. Now you take control of your story. The second step is setting boundaries or completely cutting off contact. This isn't rudeness or ingratitude. This is self-defense. When a house is on fire, we don't stay inside out of politeness to the fire. When someone is poisoning us, we don't continue meals out of courtesy to the cook. This might mean limiting contact, fewer visits, shorter phone conversations, not sharing private information. It might mean grey rock, a method where you become so boring and uninteresting in contact with her that she loses interest in you herself. It might mean completely cutting off the relationship if she still tries to control and destroy you. One woman told me, "People say, but that's your mother." And I answer, the fact that she gave birth to me doesn't give her the right to destroy my life for the next 40 years. Motherhood isn't a license to hurt. The third step is therapy with someone who understands parental narcissism. This isn't ordinary family therapy or therapy for problems with parents. This is trauma therapy. You need a therapist who understands that. Not every parent-child relationship can be fixed. Some parents are toxic, and contact with them is harmful. Your feelings of anger and resentment are justified. You're not obligated to forgive. Setting boundaries doesn't make you a bad person. The fourth step is rebuilding your sense of self-worth and identity. You must learn who you are when you're not trying to please a narcissistic mother. You must discover your true interests, passions, values, those that come from your authentic nature, not from her expectations. You must learn that you're worthy of love simply for existing. Your needs are important and deserve respect. You have a right to happiness, success, and joy. You have a right to mistakes and imperfection. Your feelings are important and deserve to be heard. You have a right to say no, without explanations and justifications. The fifth step is learning to recognize and build healthy relationships. After years of living in toxic dynamics, it can be difficult to recognize what normal, healthy relationships look like. You might attract narcissistic partners because their behavior seems familiar and exciting to you. You might sabotage healthy relationships because they seem boring compared to the drama you're used to. You must learn that healthy love isn't an emotional roller coaster, that people who truly love you won't punish you for having needs, that real love supports your growth, doesn't stunt it. The sixth step is breaking the intergenerational cycle. If you have children or plan to have them, your greatest responsibility is ensuring you don't pass on the trauma you received. This means learning how to love unconditionally, allowing children to express all emotions, not using children to meet your own emotional needs, teaching children to set boundaries and respect others' boundaries, modeling healthy relationships. One father told me the biggest motivation for working on myself was understanding that if I don't work through my trauma, I'll pass it on to my children. That my daughter might grow up with the same problems I struggle with. That was unacceptable. The seventh step is finding meaning in your experience. This doesn't mean you have to be grateful for trauma or that everything happens for a reason. It means you can use your experience to help others, to become a better person, to live a more authentic life. Many people who survived narcissistic childhoods become exceptionally empathetic and compassionate people, excellent therapists, teachers, caregivers, advocates for other victims of abuse, people of unusual resilience and strength, parents who break cycles of abuse. Your wound can become your strength. Your experience can help save someone else. Remember, a real mother would want you to be happy. A real mother wouldn't feel threatened by your success. A real mother wouldn't use your love against you. A real mother would support your independence, your growth, your happiness. If your mother wasn't that kind of mother, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means something was wrong with her. And it's not your fault or responsibility to fix it. And most important, you're not doomed to repeat her patterns. You can free yourself, you can build healthy relationships, you can be happy, you can love and be loved in a way she never gave you. Your healing is the best revenge against those who tried to destroy you. Your happiness is proof that they didn't succeed in breaking your spirit. Your ability to love is proof that the good in you survived despite everything. If this material touched you deeply, if you recognized your story in these words, know that you're not alone. Millions of people around the world are going through the same healing process. Your story matters. Your pain is real. Your right to happiness is unquestionable. Leave a comment below and tell me, which of these behaviors did you recognize in your mother? Your story can help others understand that they're not crazy, that they're not imagining things, that their experiences are real and important. Remember, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more materials about healing from toxic relationships, about recognizing manipulation, about building healthy boundaries. Your healing is a process that requires time, support, and knowledge. You don't have to go through this alone. And remember, every day you live in truth instead of illusion is a day of victory. Every moment of happiness without guilt is an act of courage. Every healthy relationship you build is proof that you didn't let yourself be broken. Your healing is the best revenge against those who tried to destroy you. Live well. It's your right and your responsibility to yourself.